Hey everyone, Andrig with Andrig's Aircooled Technology here. Wanted to show how to install an Evolution 1 fan in an early VW fan shroud. This is like a 40 horse fan shroud. This will fit in the 36 as well. The difference between the 36 obviously didn't have the fresh air heat, but the internal structure is basically the same. And even though the fans were different between the 36 horsepower engines and the 40 horsepower engines, it was just the number of blades, not its height. So that's important. So the room in the fan shroud is exactly the same. So if you have a 36 horse, don't worry about it. Original 36 horsepower fan shroud, this will still work. This is a 40, but you know, just to let you know. So what's going to come kind of, in the kit that's probably a little different. Obviously the fan, the mount looks basically the same. I'll get close here. Looks basically the same, but it's much lower profile here. Just pulls the fan down so that it'll fit in the fan shroud. But we also have to make room for the fence that's going to be closer to the backing plate. Is we provide an alternative third piece to the backing plate. So you'll use your stock first two pieces. And yes, this does require the 12 volt 3-piece backing plates, no 6 volt support. The 6 volt backing plate is one piece and it's basically too thick to be able to do anything like this. So I can't really replace that unless I make a totally new backing plate. So this is a third piece that'll come. It's a 3D printed piece. Don't worry about it strength or anything, because essentially the rigidity comes from this part anyway. So, we install these just like normal. We put these on our alternator and or generator. First piece, second piece, then you have your ring. Second piece, then you're gonna put this on just like you would the third piece. You want the opening down here to be facing kind of down, is the way I liked it. Probably doesn't really matter, but that's the way it should be done on even on the OEM pieces, in my opinion. It's supposed to be down. So we put our 10 millimeter, really M6 nuts, but they're 10 millimeter wrench on. We tighten those up. Again, these things should just be hand tight. You're not trying to destroy anything in terms of how tight that needs to be, just like that. So now you've got your 3-piece backing plates in place, and this is going to flex some, but don't worry about it. It won't really cause any issues. And then we're going to want to do, from my experience, you're going to get these shims. I'll show them to you. You're going to get these shims that come with the kit, and of course they have a little cutout for the Woodruff key. They'll slide over the shaft. In all my testing, 4 shims is what you need to get this to fit right. This is experimental. I will adjust this part a little bit in the production, but for right now we're going to just put 4 shims on there. I'm going to try to make it so you don't, maybe 1 shim or no shims in the future. We'll put our Woodruff key in place. These darn Woodruff keys have become so loosey-goosey in terms of the fit. Now the mount goes on the same way. You're going to line it up so that this one required a little bit of a hand tap there to get it to seat in place. And you're going to see it seated where it looks virtually, I don't know if you can really see that or not, it looks almost completely flat in there. It's not. It's slightly below the material of the fan. That's so the washers and the nut, whatever, will actually clamp the fan down. If not, you'll end up with a loose fan that goes up and down. So then we're going to slide this over our Woodruff key. And because, for whatever reason, these Woodruff keys are loosey-goosey, they don't fit real tight anymore. They used to be really tight. So you could just kind of hammer it in there and slide this thing on. Now they like to come loose, so sometimes this can be a bit tricky, and I might go off camera if I end up with a little problem, but I use a long screwdriver, kind of line things up, try to hold it in place as I slide it on. There we go. And now you're gonna have one of these washers right here, a flat washer. You're gonna stick that on there, and then you have the custom made that I just introduced with the Evolution 2 and started shipping with the Evolution 1 fans as well. This spring washer, so you don't need Loctite anymore. You're gonna put that over the top of that. Then you're gonna use your M12 nut. Takes an 18mm socket flange nut. We're gonna screw that. Get that lined up right there. Screw that on. And we're gonna tighten it. Just kind of hand tight. We just make sure there's no play up and down, right? That it's nice and snug in there. You're gonna torque that to 30 foot-pounds, just like the Evolution 1 fan in a Doghouse fan trap. Now, at that point, you might, like in this case, I've installed this, practiced install this a couple times, so there's no rubbing at all on the backing plate. When I first did this with 4 shims, it actually ticked a little bit, rubbed a little bit, but as soon as I put it in the fan shroud, so you might experience this, as soon as I put it in the fan shroud, then it just kind of snugs it up, and then that totally dissipates. So you put it in the fan shroud, and it should spin nice and freely, and it does, as we can see here. Then we're going to get our screws to hold everything in place. Make sure we got that all lined up nicely. I don't snug them right away, because we make sure we just kind of got this thing really well lined up. Of course, the regular screws, whatever screws you have, these are from CB Performance. I think they stopped selling these even. They're the Allen Hitch style, screws, but they're the same. If you have the slotted, OEM slot screws, no problem. Okay, just double check again. No hitting. I've got that fan shroud up here. No hitting. So you just make sure, obviously, you install the fan shroud, that you got everything nice and level and square, because you can cause it to hit just by things not being square. If the alternator is not sitting completely flat in your alternator stand, then you've got some fitment issues with your fan shroud. There's nothing to do with the fan. But you want to make sure that thing just sits in that cradle nice and flat, or generator, nice and flat, before you strap it down with the strap. But always double check that it turns freely. After you strap it down, after you have the screws in place, etc., that it turns freely, it's not hitting anywhere. Because sometimes, like I said, the generators and alternators vary in size quite a bit. Even I have 2 Bosch generators as an example, and one was larger than the other, and they were both made in Mexico. One was used and one was new, so I have no idea. I've got different diameters of alternators, and they can vary a lot, like 103 millimeters to 104.5 millimeters. So that 1.5 millimeter difference will lower, right, the whole assembly. And of course, this is resting on top of the crankcase. So if it gets too low, you're essentially cocking the whole thing, and when you strap this thing down, you're actually cocking the fan off square in the fan shroud, and that can cause it to hit. So you want to avoid all those things, but that's really it. Everything else should be, pretty straightforward in terms of how to do this. And of course, after you have it together, you have it on there, you put your pulley on the front, you hold the pulley with the slot like using a screwdriver, then you torque to 30 foot-pounds. And they should be good. So that's installation of these parts in the early fan shrouds from Volkswagen. So there you have it. Appreciate it, and you guys take care. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.